We are in the book of 1 Samuel. Let's just do some math, right? At the beginning, God made them male and female. For this reason, a man, singular in Hebrew, man shall leave his father and mother and be joined to his wife, also singular. And say it with me, we all know what two is, shall become. He didn't say and the three or the 8 or whatever Solomon was, the 300 shall become one. God's plan is very clear, but in their culture, because of the harshness of the environment and the necessity for children, and probably because of sin and hardness of heart, it was allowed, but regulated. That is enough. This man went up from his city yearly to worship and sacrifice to the Lord of hosts in Shiloh. Also, Phinehas, the priests of the Lord, were there. Also, the two sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of the Lord, were there. And we know they're pretty nasty people. There was no temple. We're used to talking about the temple. There was no temple. There was a portable worship tabernacle. It was a courtyard and a holy place and a tent in it that moved around with them. According to Joshua 18, when they entered the promised land, they didn't need to move it around anymore. They put it in a place called Shiloh, or peace, and that's where it was, until God named the place where the Lord your God chooses to make his name abide. Till that time when God says, I've chosen this city, and he did. He said it was Jerusalem, and it happened right after that terrible plague where the angel had the sword out over the threshing floor of Araunah. Said, that's the place. Okay, Israel's place of worship was a tent. And they did that for 350 years. So anybody who's griping about the facilities that we happen to be in, just know that. There wasn't air conditioning in the tent, just so you know. It was about 150 foot long, about 75 foot wide. Just think of a half of a football field, roughly. It had cloth walls that were 7.5 foot high, and they were made out of a white cloth. So as you approached, it was just a white cloth, and then there was one gate faced east, and it was multicolored, beautiful, many different colors, so you could clearly find out where the entrance was. You'd walk in, and there'd be this big altar that's about 4 feet high that they would be burning flesh on. As you walked in, the smoke of burning flesh. Maybe the barbecue smell, but they also slaughtered the cow right next to it, and then they sprinkled blood around it and then took the stuff out. So it was a bloody place. The tabernacle was a bloody place on the outside, but then in the back was another tent. It's about 45 feet wide and 15 feet long. 15 feet wide and 45 feet long. And there you could never go. You could go into that place, but you couldn't go into the holy place. It's for the priests only, and they couldn't go in with the blood of the sacrifice on them. They had to wash in this laver and then go in, and there they would pray for all of Israel. It was a holy place. So I want you to picture, he would go every year to this tabernacle. I want to show it kind of like this. That's what it looked like. You'd go and they would go and worship in that tabernacle, in that tent, right? Every year. And the law required 3 times a year. Everybody who was a man, 13 and younger, all the 13-year-olds are like, 13 and younger, men would go worship. The families came too, but those were required. Okay, so they go to worship. And whenever the time came for Elkanah to make an offering, so he would make an offering, he would give portions to Peninnah, his wife, and to all her sons and daughters. Everybody who went got to bring an offering to the Lord. She had sons, plural, and daughters, plural. But to Hannah, who had no son and no daughter, he would give a double portion. She got twice as much to bring, for he loved Hannah. Doesn't say he loved Peninnah. There it is, polygamy. He loved Hannah, although the Lord had closed her womb. Here is a super, super hard thing to accept. God has total sovereignty over the womb. God has total sovereignty over the womb. Children are a heritage from the Lord. God decides whether you're going to have a child or not. You don't. I know people who desperately want children and can't have them. How hard it is to accept God's sovereignty over that. Sometimes there's childlessness because of sin. Yes, sometimes it is because of sin. We know that because in Genesis chapter 20, verse 18, it said the Lord had closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. He had taken Sarah and was going to make her one of his wives, and God just went zip, and nobody can have a kid. God is totally sovereign. But it's not always because of sin. Sarai, Abram's wife, who became Sarah, Sarai was barren. Rebecca was barren. Rachel was barren. Anybody see anything? These are the patriarchs. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Every one of the wives who were associated with the Messiah and the miracles of God through the Messiah, every one of them started barren. That's interesting. Sarai was barren, Rebecca's barren, Rachel's barren. We know Samson's mother, I'm not so hot on Samson as an individual, but we know Samson's mother was barren. And God's like, yeah, you need a hairy kid, and he's going to beat up an army with a donkey's jawbone. Elizabeth, John the Baptist's mom, was called barren. They're all barren, and they're all seemingly very godly people. And God had an amazing plan that he needed them to know. Their child was a miracle. Every one of them, he wanted them to stop and acknowledge their child was from God. I say to you, that is God's standing desire for every woman. Your child is from God, and that is the message we're going to get out of 1 Samuel.